Today we're taking a look at this power supply from GAMEMAX. Now this is their 1050. This is their GX Rampage power supply. Now it's 1050 watts of power. Now there's a PCIe 5.1 ready and of course ATX 3.1 ready with this. Now this of course is their 80 plus platinum standard with this of course. Now this is in black in colorway, and if we pop it open guys, we're going to be greeted with of course the user manual like standard with these. You're going to be greeted with of course this big old package. Now this package is going to have all of our PCIe cables, our power supply cables, and then some. Now you're also going to have your standard wall plug cable for that. Of course, we're going to set that aside. It's also going to come with some gloves, just in case they want you to use the gloves to install this. It does have their GAMEMAX gloves. It's also going to come with, of course, a screwdriver, some thumb screws to actually tie down the actual power supply to the back of your case, and, of course, ties. Now, with that, of course, we'll throw the pouch to the side because we really don't need it. You're going to have this big packet of cables. You're going to have your SATA cables, your PCIe cables, your power supply cables, your CPU cables, your GPU cables, and all of those in between. It is, of course, zipped up just like this. Now, you're going to have your standard 24 pin. So this is a 20 plus 4. So you're going to have your standard 20 plus your other piece of this. This is your motherboard power cabling. This is actually going to cool. So these two different separate cables will go to the power supply. This side will go to your motherboard with that. Now, of course, you guys are going to have your standard old school SATA cables, like your PATA cables for power. You're going to have, of course, right here, like your PCIe Gen 4 cablings with this. I'm going to believe this one's actually going to be our power supply for the motherboard. Now, I do wish we had some more writings, of course, like this, like I said. This one says CPU, so we have the control processing unit with this, of course, like that. And you're going to have even more cabling with these. Of course, you're going to have your standard SATA cabling. You're going to have your 600 watt 12 volt PT cable for your 600 watt GPUs if you guys use those. I don't have that, so I don't have to worry about that today. Now, you also have, of course, more PCIe slots. This is going to be like if we're going in your PCIe for your graphics cards like mine. You're going to do, of course, the 8-pin, and then this one will actually connect together to give you another 8-pin. Hopefully, there's a couple of those in here. There are, so we do have mine set up for this. We have plenty of SATA cables, and, of course, your other PCIe cable as well. If your power supply, like your CPU power supply, takes two of those, I run dual cabling on this, you're going to need that. So next up, guys, we're going to start moving some stuff around. But first and foremost, we need to show you guys the power supply itself. Now, I'm going to take the box because I really don't need the box now. We're going to pull it aside. We're going to grab the power supply, and of course, you guys are going to see right here, standard black variation with, of course, their logo on the fan. Nice, large fan on top. Has, of course, the backing, and this is where you're going to find, of course, your 100 volt, 240 volt, 50 to 60 hertz, and, of course, your switch on and off with this. This is where you're going to mount your 4 screws to mount it, of course, inside the computer. On the back side is where you're going to find, of course, your CPU PCIe slot plugs. This is the ones I'm going to use for the CPU. This is what I'm going to use for my graphics card, of course, with that. They also have that 12 VP or VH power plug if you guys need for the newer graphics cards, the bigger ones. We also have our peripheral SATAs and MSATAs. Then we have our motherboard plugs with this. It's a full modular ATX power supply that we're going to install into this PC with that. Now that we cleaned up some of this stuff around here, we're going to have to actually start tearing this down. First and foremost, we're going to flip this forward, and we're going to grab the front plate off of the power case. Now, second is we're going to pop this open and swing up, of course, the door. Now, inside my case, I actually have sleeved cabling already in here. Unfortunately, we won't be using the sleeved cabling for this video purposes because the sleeve cabling only goes to the power supply that I have in here. Now, with this, of course, on hand, if you guys have loose pieces like this, you might want to pull them out. I'm not too worried about that one, of course. That's 3D printed. Will stay there pretty easily well. We're going to have to start disconnecting cables. We're going to get to that in a second. We're going to actually flip this around because we do have to pull off the back side as well. Now, you guys are going to laugh because the back side always has the cabling. Now, the cabling on the back side is like this. Now you're going to notice that we do have two SSDs over here. These SSDs are going to have to be hooked back up, so we're going to, of course, need, the cabling that you guys just saw with this connected up inside here, which isn't or shouldn't be an issue when we go through these steps. Now, with it, of course, we're going to leave this right here just like this because I actually want to close this, and I'm going to come to the back where we need to actually pull off the 4 screws off the power supply. Now, those 4 screws are very easily accessible. We'll literally just come over here and start screwing this, and we'll pull these off. Now, do not lose these screws because these screws will go to, of course, the power supply that you're pulling out, just in case you guys want to use that power supply again. Now, you guys technically could use it on the newer power supply that we're actually throwing in here, but it shouldn't be an issue. It's just 4 screws, just like this, very simply, and we are now done and disconnected. With that, I still have, of course, my wireless cabling set on this. Not a big deal. It's not going to actually get in our way. Pull off the back panel, and, of course, we're in here, and we're ready to start going. Now, this is where we're going to start disconnecting and, of course, pulling out the supply. The power supply is loose, so technically, if I wanted to, and we'll kind of turn this towards you guys so you guys can kind of see. If I wanted to, I can actually do this, pop it out, and slide it out. This is where you're going to notice that I have all of these cables in here and connected up. Now, that's where we're going to be seeing a lot of stuff. So, to disconnect, of course, like the SSDs, you're going to have to disconnect, of course, those cablings. Now, we're going to need those cables for the newer stuff. And then, of course, the rest of the cabling always on the front side, which is, of course, not that hard as well to disconnect. Graphics card, easily disconnected. We just slide those through, just like that, into the hole. Now, your motherboard, and I'm going to say this gently, the motherboard plug may or may not come out gingerly easily, depending on your actual plug cabling. Mine's off and already out, so we're just now disconnected. Same with, of course, the upper power pieces. Now, we're going to disconnect, of course, that piece up here and slide that through as well. That's all there is to disconnecting that power supply. So now once that power supply is out, we're going to reverse connecting it all back up. So now I have the cables that I'm technically going to need. I'm going to need two PCIe cables and 1 CPU cable. So I'm going to have 2 of these, of course, for this. So I have my PCIes. This is going to go to, of course, my graphics card. And then, of course, the single is going to go to the CPU up top on the back side. Now, make sure that, of course, you do have your 8-pin plug, and it does say CPU with that. I do have my 1 SATA cable. That 1 SATA cable is, of course, going to run those 2 SSDs that we do have in there. We also have our single 24-pin motherboard plug. Now, of course, 24 pins going to go to the motherboard itself. The other 2 are going to go to the actual power supply with this. Now, technically, yes, we can pull the power supply over here. We can actually start untangling this and connecting those to this first, which is what I would kind of do, unless you're really finicky about how you're going to do this and run this on hand with that. Now, remember, the dual cabling are going to go to, of course, the motherboard plug. So the dual side of this 24-pin, you have the 20-pin and then, of course, the other pin. You're going to connect up just like this. Then you're going to pull the other side around and you're going to connect up like that. Now, once you have that in there, of course, you're going to make sure that it is clicked in place and does not come out. Now, that would be the same thing you would do with, of course, that 12-volt power pin. Do be careful with those. Make sure those are seated properly because you do not want them to short out at any point. Now, the CPU, of course, we're going to grab the single plug for the CPU that I had out over here. Now, this is going to go up into, of course, the top of the motherboard of connecting that one with this. Now, do remember that you need to make sure that you have these set perfectly set like you like. I have the single one, so we're going to actually set it just like that, and we're good to go. Now, with this, of course, the fan does need to be on the bottom of your actual PC case. We're going to slide that in this way, just like that. And we're going to walk you through that, of course, on hand. Now, the reason they actually leave the PCIe slots labeled, and that's because they don't want you to mix up the CPU and the PCU plugs, or CPU plugs, when connecting them up to, of course, your actual motherboards and your processing units. So make sure that you have these connected up. Now I'm going to, of course, come up here. We're going to connect up to this side right there. We're going to grab the second one with that, of course, and put it right next to it on hand, because I do want those two in the same plug. So I do remember that which and where they go with this. Now make sure that they are in there nice and snug. Same with, of course, the SATA cabling on hand with that, guys, for this. Now, remember, it is, of course, a lot of wiring. You guys could stay with this, or you guys could go out there to like cable mods and get yourself a whole new set of cables that look and match your build. The black colorway works. Of course, they do have a white power supply with the white cabling on this on hand. Now, what we're going to do is change the views slightly so you guys can actually see me slide in the power supply. Now that we changed views, you guys are going to see me, of course, snake this into here just like this and slide it into place. Now, once we slide it back here, we're going to actually bring this over, and I'm going to grab, of course, the 4 screws that comes with this. We're going to take a single screw right at first, and we're going to make sure that we line up at least one of these screw holes to actually mount this power supply in place. Now, do make sure that your screw holes actually mount properly for this power supply itself. Sometimes they won't mount up or match depending on the style, so you'll have to look at which screw hole you're actually going to use for this actual power supply. So just like that, guys, we have one screw in here on the bottom, which is totally fine. We're going to go to the opposite corner up top over here, make sure that the power supply is snug and put into place. And then, of course, the screwing on this one mounts a little lower, so we're not going to worry about that, but once we're in there, we're actually square. You guys will, of course, go to this hole and this hole on my case, which is the Fantex Evolve. This is the original Evolve, of course, Evolve out here, which is a beautiful case that still looks amazingly well done. Now, with that, of course, just like that, your power supply is now mounted and ready to be used inside the case. Now, of course, we're going to revert back to, of course, the wiring mess back here on hand, and we're going to actually look for the SATA cables. Now, I want the SATA cables on purpose because I want to connect up to, of course, my my SSDs. Now, do make sure that you guys are putting them in the right direction so they're in there the right way. I may have to look down here to make sure which side that we're actually mounting this with to make sure they're properly seated for us. And it may take a second, but of course right there we actually have it. And then we're actually going to grab, of course, this one, and we're going to go this direction with this one. So right here, we're going to pop around. We're going to turn it around. We're going to meet up. And we're like, oh, it doesn't fit that way. So you come back around, you turn it around, and just make sure that you fit it snug. Now, remember, guys, I'm doing this without looking at it. Let's make sure that we can actually see the actual plug. Right there, we're in, and we're good to go. Now that we did that, we're going to take, of course, our CPU plug, and we're going to slide it through the top hole right here for us. That way it is actually out here and ready for us on the front side. Same with, of course, the motherboard plug. We're going to snake it through, of course, the hole, so it is now ready. Now, of course, the PCIe slots, that's going to be a little bit different. We're going to actually do that from the front side for us. We're going to slide this around, of course, and I'm going to attempt to kind of snake these in here so we can actually reach in and grab them with that. Now, remember, it may take you a minute to actually sneak these up, just like this. Once we're in there, we actually have it through. Of course, with the other one, we're going to grab the other side, and we're going to do the same thing with this. Now we have, of course, our graphics cards cabling. We have our motherboard cabling. We have our CPU cabling up here. CPU cabling, guys. Make sure that it clips in the proper direction for the actual needs of the actual CPU. Now, when you do that, you're going to pop up here, and you're just going to slide it in. And you're going to meet, of course, the piece, and it's going to snap in place. Same with the power supply. You have your 24-pin up here, and I know it's kind of hard for you guys to see, but you're going to grab this, of course, you're going to snake it around, and you're going to clip it in place. Now, depending on the positioning of the actual plug, you may have to turn it around and fit the holes properly, just like that. We are now in there. We are actually connected up, and we can actually snake the cabling back. Same with the PCIe plug. Now, yes, I could use a single plug, but I want all the power to, of course, my graphics card that I can. So you're going to do this, and you're going to connect it up, and you're going to have, of course, all the pins that you need to do this with ease. Now, remember, connecting it up, that you want to make sure that it is snug into place. Same with this cabling. Now, I'm going to actually use the upper piece with this like this, and I'm going to actually make sure that it is, of course, nicely set, and we're going to make sure that both pieces right here, just like this, are set, and we're going to slide it in and, of course, connect it up. We're now in there. Now, cabling management. Sometimes people don't do the cabling management, and, you know, they're not wrong with it. They're not right with it. I kind of like to hide my cabling. I like to, of course, Velcro up some of the stuff, just like this. Now, this cabling, of course, I'm just going to snug it like this so I can actually have it out of the way. Now, we're, of course, going to reverse putting the case together. Then we're going to plug it in. We're going to power it up so you guys can see it boot up. The GAMEMAX 1050 in here, the 1050 power supply. We're going to take the power cable. Now, you notice I have a portable monitor here plugged in. But I'm going to connect up this power cable over here. We're going to connect it in, of course, to the wall plug. We're going to make sure that our switch is now on. And I'm going to hit the power button. What you're going to notice is this computer is actually going to start lighting up and powering on for us. You guys are going to notice that, of course, our lighting is going to come on. And then after a few minutes, our monitor should power up too as well. Now, I'm attempting to power this off of the computer as well. I can't remember with that, but you guys will notice that all of the lighting on the course, the graphics card and everything is now powered, which is what we want from this to do. That means we installed the power supply perfectly well, and it is now running the device. Now, if you guys watch over here, we'll actually see, of course, hopefully, our actual device power up and, of course, show signal. It may not show signal. I may have it in the wrong port back here, which isn't a big deal. Just with that, of course, we have it coming on, and that's where we want it to power up. Now, I can actually show you guys this powering up, of course, with that actual, again, I'll unplug it, and right there, it now powers up, and then we are now connected. That's all there is to this. So if you guys need to actually do an install or need another power supply, GAMEMAX has got you covered with this 1050 80 plus platinum style power supply.